Today I am going to talk about stitch orientation, and I'm going to address a common question that I get, which is, why do some of my stitches look like X's instead of V's? So let me show you what I am referring to. Here I have a stitch. You can see how it looks like an X. If I pull on the fabric, that stitch tightens. See here? Whereas a regular knit stitch that is not crossed, like this one, looks like a V stitch, and when I pull on it, it opens up. So how do I make sure that my stitches are open? And incidentally, if your stitches are crossed, it's not necessarily wrong, it's just another type of knitting. But it's good to be able to, on purpose, decide whether you want to have the stitches either be open or crossed. Which is why I want to talk about stitch orientation. So when we're knitting, we're generally manipulating the right side of the stitch. So I'm going to pull this first stitch off of the needle so you could see the loop. This is the loop that was sitting on the needle. The right side of the loop and the left side of the loop. When a stitch is sitting on the needle in a Western or standard, or what some people call the correct orientation, but I don't like to use that term because lots of people knit with the right side of the loop facing on the back side of the needle, and it isn't wrong, it's just different. But a lot of people will tell you that the stitch should be sitting on the needle with the right side, the right leg facing you. If in your type of knitting, however you're making your stitches, you end up with the stitches with the right leg away from you behind, that's okay too, it's not a problem. What you need to be aware of is that when you're knitting, when you're making your stitches, in order to have them come out to where they're all open this way, like this, and not crossed like this, unless of course you want that effect, is that you're going to be working with the right side of the loop. This is this loop that you are going to be manipulating. So if it's on the front of the needle and you're going to knit, you're going to be pushing your right needle tip just to the left of the right leg and making your knit stitch as you normally do. Some people will find that they have the right leg of the stitches behind, facing away from them. Okay, if you do not want to end up with a cross stitch and the right leg of the stitch is behind the left needle tip, you're still going to be inserting your right needle tip just to the left of the right leg of the stitch. So you're going in actually through the center of the stitch. This looks then like you're working through the back, but you're not. You're working through the right leg. Now if you want it on purpose to have a crossed stitch, let's say your stitches are oriented with the right leg behind, and you on purpose wanted that stitch to be crossed, then you want to manipulate the left leg and insert your right needle tip just to the left of it. When you do that, what will happen is, my yarn is split. Try that again. Okay, now you can see that that stitch is now twisted. It's an X. Now sometimes, in some the way that some people knit, they will go through and they're knitting the right side of the loop as I am here, and they're automatically because they're knitting the right leg, they're automatically orienting the stitches so that when you're finished with the row, as I'm about to be finished here, I'm getting ready to purl now. Okay, now here's my purl stitches. I'm going to purl this row, but if I look at my loop, I'm going to take it off. Here's the loop. The right side, even though I was going through the center of the stitch, the right side is still facing me. Now, for some people who knit in a combination style, when they purl, and this is most often true of people who carry the yarn in their left hand, when they purl, if you want to avoid the left side of the stitch ending up in front of the needle, the way to do that is to take your yarn from the front and wrap it over the top of the right needle tip and bring it back down again, and then push the yarn back through the stitch normally. Some people who carry the yarn in their left hand, instead of wrapping the yarn over the top as I just did, over the top, will just take the yarn and see how it automatically runs underneath it wants to just automatically go underneath the needle. What they'll do is they'll just scoop that right back without wrapping. We'll just go in and scoop the yarn back. Go in and scoop the yarn back. So when you purl this way, and you're scooping the yarn from underneath and back, instead of taking the yarn over the top, you're just scooping it back like so. What happens is that now all of a sudden the left side of the stitch is facing front instead of the right side of the stitch. So when you knit this way, you end up twisting the stitches on the purl row, and then when you come back and knit them, you reorient them to where on the next row the stitches end up, here's a knit stitch that I did, see the right side of the stitch is facing forward. If you're a combination knitter and you always go through the center of the stitch this way, and you're not purling, so you're twisting when you're twisting your stitches when you're creating the knit stitch, and then when you're coming back around, you're not purling to reorient them back the other direction, then what happens is you'll automatically get a bunch of cross stitches. So in order to avoid that, when you're knitting circularly, what you want to do is just look at the stitches to see which leg, the right or the left, is facing forward. And when you make your stitch, insert your right needle tip just to the right, just to the left of the right leg. Let me get across a purl row so that I can show you what I mean. You'll notice I'm wrapping over the top of the stitches, just over the top instead of scooping under as I did on the previous row. Okay, so here I have the right leg is facing forward. So if you started out and your right leg is facing forward and you're accustomed to knitting through the center of the stitch, and you go ahead and do that, and you're knitting through the center of the stitch. Now in this case, because the right leg is facing forward, you actually are knitting the left leg, and you will get some twisted stitches. So in order to avoid twisted stitches, as you see here I have some twisted stitches, just remember you want to insert your needle tip just to the left of the right leg, whether the right leg of the stitch is in front or the right leg of the stitch is in back. It doesn't matter. Just make sure your right needle tip goes just to the left of that leg and your stitches won't be crossed. Here's the right leg. So I'm going to go just to the left of it. There's the right leg, and I'm going to go just to the left of it. And whether or not you wrap over when you purl or you scoop under, it doesn't matter. Just when you come back to your your knit row rather, look to see where the right leg is, if it's in back or in front, and insert your right needle tip just to the left of the right leg of your stitch, and that will prevent cross stitches. Of course, if you want cross stitches on purpose, then look to insert your needle into the left leg. Okay, I hope that was helpful, and I'll see you next time.